Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane, coming to you live from beyond the suburban curtain here in Grand Prix City, Melbourne. Well, coming up on the program this week, we're going to talk to a young man in a hurry. He's the winner of the Victorian Formula Ford Championship for 2021. He's also currently in major contention for the New South Wales Formula Ford Championship, which kicks off once again with the supercars at Sydney Motorsport Park this weekend. His name is Tom Sargent, and last week he had some huge news. He's about to take the next step on the ladder to success when he joins the Michelin Sprint Cup Challenge for the Porsches. It's part of the sort of the Porsche pathway to success, if you like, and he's about to take that big jump. And so we'll be catching up with Tom Sargent just a little bit later on in the program from his home in Young in New South Wales. Speaking of that Porsche pathway to success, first of all, I want to start with a congratulations to our recent guest on In Pit Lane, Cooper Murray. Cooper, if you saw the program, Cooper was just about to head off overseas for the Porsche shootout, the Young Driver shootout, and as part of that, he was going to sort of warm up with a couple of races in the French Carrera Cup at Portimao. Well, that happened last weekend. In his first race, he finished fourth, and in his second race, he finished on the podium in third place. When you consider he'd never driven that car before, he had never driven that track before, it's a really great warm-up for that shootout. So congratulations, Cooper. Really well deserved. Great performance, and that certainly puts him in great form running up to the Porsche Young Driver shootout and possibly the pathway to an international racing future. So good luck to Cooper Murray. Also, congratulations to our mate Hugh Barter, Melbourne driver, young guy that we've been following through from his days in karts from about the age of probably about 11 or 12. Hugh's been a regular guest on the program. Well, once again in France, as part of the French Formula 4 Championship, Hugh finished second in that championship, so congratulations to Hugh Barter. So lots of young Australians doing a lot of fabulous things overseas. Speaking of overseas, that's where all the motor racing is happening at the moment. Let's check out what was happening last weekend. This is the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. We have a brand new World MotoGP champion, and for the first time ever, he is French. A fourth place finish for Fabio Quartararo was enough for the Frenchman to wrap up this year's championship. The race was won by Marc Marquez, who is showing a recent and ominous return to his previously dominant form. The victory was helped in no small part by crashes to Ducati pair Paco Bagnaia and Jack Miller. They gambled on hard compound front tyres. Gambling seldom pays off. Second was Marquez's Honda teammate Pol Espargaro. Enya Bastianini got the better of Quartararo on the last lap to take the final step on the podium and take the lead in the Rookie of the Year fight. In Moto 2, it was a lucky escape for Australia's Remy Gardner in his fight for the Moto 2 crown. Gardner finished back in 7th place, however he was let off the hook when his championship rival, teammate Raul Fernandez, crashed out while in the lead. The race was won by pole sitter Sam Lowes, his first since taking back-to-back race victories in Qatar at the start of the season. Gardner now leads the series by 18 points as the teams head into the next round at Portimao in 2 weeks' time. The stars at night are big and bright deep in the heart of Texas. The Formula One stars also shone brightly at the Circuit of the Americas, where a 3-day crowd of 400,000 showed that finally Formula One may have broken through in the USA. And it was a tense fight to the finish as Max Verstappen increased his championship lead by beating Lewis Hamilton with a well-judged and mature drive. Hamilton made a great start to lead early, but the undercut put Verstappen back in front, and from then on he and his Red Bull team controlled the race. It was a good result for the soft drink company as Sergio Perez finished third, keeping the pressure on Hamilton despite a broken drinks bottle that left him without water or Red Bull in the Texas heat. The mid-card battle between Ferrari and McLaren saw a win for the Italian marque thanks to a steady drive by Charles Leclerc. Dan Ricciardo finished 5th, holding off the challenge of Carlos Sainz and leading home teammate and officially crowned teenage heartthrob Lando Norris. The Kyle Larson show rolls on in NASCAR, this time at Kansas. Larson led a race-high 130 laps, crossing the finish line to take a record 9th win of the season in the Hollywood Casino 400. At least 6 of the 8 remaining playoff drivers had problems. Penske's Ryan Blaney was second in the standings going into the race, but his number 12 Ford was hit by Austin Dillon and sent into the wall. Blaney's car was unable to continue and he ended up being classed 37th on the afternoon, dropping from 2nd to 5th in the standings, 1 point outside the final 4. The series now moves on to Martinsville Speedway next weekend. Then the top 4 ranked drivers will move on to the November the 7th NASCAR Cup Series Championship Final at Phoenix Raceway to decide the champion for 2021. Honda has dominated the latest round of the Super GT with a win at the Autopolis. Number 8 Arta NSX GT of Tomoki Najiri and Nairi Fukuzumi started from 4th position on the grid, but managed to run away to victory in the second half for their first win of the season. Second came the Toyota Supra of Yuji Takakawa and Hidewaki Ashura. In third place it was a Nissan with Sugio Matsuda and Ronnie Quintarelli, which meant that the winning podium was neatly divided between all 3 manufacturers. Australian driver Molly Taylor and her teammate Johan Kristoffersen mastered the changeable conditions to seal a dramatic victory in the latest round of the Extreme E all-electric off-road series in Sardinia. A heavy downpour prior to the start of the race made for the first wet final of the Extreme E season, providing the 5 finalists with a whole new challenge. The Chip Ganassi racing car of Kyle LeDuc and Sarah Price looked set for the win until Price crashed soon after the driver change. This left Kristoffersen in the lead and he hung on to take the win. Taylor and Kristoffersen now have a strong lead in the series as it heads into a very cold final round at Dorset in the UK on the 18th and 19th of December. And that's the In-Pit Lane news for the week commencing Monday the 25th of October 2021. We'll have more news next week. Now, when we come back after this break, we're going to be joined by our special guest, Tom Sargent. He is the winner of the Victorian Formula Ford Championship. He is currently leading the New South Wales Formula Ford Championship. He's in contention for the Australian Formula Ford Championship. And in 2022, he'll be behind the wheel of a Porsche in the Michelin Sprint Cup Challenge. And we'll be finding out all about that and his future plans right after this break. You're watching In Pit Lane. Here's some people who help keep Channel 31 on the air. So, do us a favour and watch their messages and support them. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, our guest tonight is Tom Sargent. Tom's a young driver from New South Wales who came down and won the truncated Victorian Formula Ford Championship before, once again competing in New South Wales, where he's in contention for the New South Wales State Championship and also for the Australian Championship, which will finish off at the end of the year at Island Magic at the end of November. Now, last week, Tom announced some exciting news that he's going to be racing next year in Porsche's Michelin Sprint Cup Challenge. That's sort of, the stepping stone into Carrera Cup, and from then on, who knows, to international success, perhaps the Porsche Young Driver Shootout like Cooper Murray, and before him, Matt Campbell and others, and also, a lot of our supercar drivers who have made that pathway through to supercars like David Reynolds and others. So I caught up with Tom a little bit earlier this week, and I asked him about his plans for 2022 and beyond. This is Tom Sargent. Thomas, thanks for joining us. And first of all, some very exciting news last week with the announcement that you're moving out of Formula Ford and you're stepping up the ranks a bit. Tell us about the news that you had and where you'll be going in 2022.
Yeah, we got some really exciting news that come up this week, which was awesome. So, like you said, we're stepping out of Formula Ford after 4 years in the category into Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge. So, we're starting to join the Porsche pyramid, and hopefully we can continue on that pyramid on the way to potentially Europe.
So, how did the deal all come together?
Well, with I've been racing with CHE Racing Team for my years in Formula Ford, and Cameron Hill, they run in the Carrera Cup Series. So, we kind of started to speak about it as, that generation of car in the Carrera Cup Series was then getting handed down to the Michelin Sprint Series. So it was kind of pretty good timing for us as Cameron, was looking at going for the next car as that comes in. So it was good timing for us to be able to, grab this car. It's had some really good results leading the championship and Carrera Cup this year. So it was, perfect timing for us to grab that and to utilise that in Michelin Sprint next year.
As you say, it's all part of the Porsche pyramid of motorsport. We had Cooper Murray on the program a couple of weeks ago, just before he headed off to eventually run in the Porsche Young Drivers Shootout. Is that sort of a path that you're looking at, perhaps moving overseas, or is your focus more on staying in Australia and moving up to supercars? Because this is very much part of the ladder now. I mean, it seems to be sort of Formula Ford into either Super 2 or Carrera Cup, and then moving onto supercars. Is that what you're interested in?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was young, I've always wanted to be a V8 supercar driver. I've always wanted to race at Bathurst and stand on the top step there and win a supercars championship. But with this opportunity that this Porsche pyramid gives, it's like you were talking about with Cooper now overseas, doing that shootout. So it offers really good, it's a really good package with the junior development program. So it's something I'm really looking at actually now, is kind of following that progression through to Europe and hopefully getting on board that junior program and having that take me over there.
As we discussed with Cooper and with a few other people who are already young Australians like Hugh Barter and others that are over there at the moment, also Scott Andrews just recently, it's a very exciting time. I mean, with sports car racing just taking off around the world, and of course, the FIA World Endurance Championship adopting GT3 regulations for Le Mans and the World Championship. Very exciting time to be involved in GT racing and sports cars. Do you think that has sort of changed the focus of a lot of young Australians, whereas for a while there was like Formula One is probably too far out of reach, but so we'll settle for supercars, but now there's something beyond supercars that is actually achievable.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So like I was saying, ever since I was a kid, I kind of wanted to do the supercar thing, but now as I kind of grow older and mature a little bit, I can see that Europe route, and like you said, with GT racing, Le Mans stuff, all that stuff is such a cool classes to be in. So I think it's definitely something that I'm kind of now starting to turn my focus towards, and hoping that could be my my end goal in my career. So they're such cool cars. They're such an awesome class, and the racing is just downright just insane. So I think you're 100% right in saying that a lot of kids are now starting to turn their focus a little bit to that, especially with the change in supercars and the change in ownership and the car developing. I think it does make that European route a really attractive looking option.
It is interesting when you talk about the changing attitudes towards supercars. I mean, how old are you now? You're how old?
19.
19 years old, so you'd be ideal to ask about. I mean, my generation, we grew up in the 60s and 70s, and it was a Ford versus Holden, was tribal, it was absolutely everything. But you're in a new generation now. I mean, does that sort of whole sort of I suppose Ford versus Holden is out of the thing. I mean, do you think people your age are now looking more global and are looking at brands like the GT brands like Porsche and Ferrari and Honda through Acura, all of those marks?
I think so. Like you said, when you were watching supercars, it was very Ford versus Holden. It was very red versus blue sort of thing. And as the cars evolve, it was always that win on Sunday, sell on Monday thing. And that's obviously phased out as the cars evolved, and they're no longer really road cars anymore. They're very much purpose built race cars. So I'm a Ford man through and through, and my family is so. For sure, if I was to get into supercars, I'd ideally love to be driving a Ford or a Mustang sort of thing. But, like you said, that European route with all, that Porsche offer, for example, they do such a good presentation. They have such a good outfit going. They're obviously a global company that do what they do extremely well. And it'd be really exciting to be part of that. Obviously, Mark Webber, who's factory Porsche driver, it's such a cool thing to be able to do, and something I would dream of doing. That would be awesome.
Of course, we've had a very interrupted, past couple of seasons in Formula Ford, where you're still at the moment. You are going back into Formula Ford, or be racing again in a couple of weeks' time, starting at Sydney Motorsport Park, just to round the year up. But how many races have you managed to get in this season? And you've done pretty well in both the Victorian and New South Wales series, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got a fair few races in at the start of the year, which was good. I've done 3 Victorian State Series and 2 National Series, as well as the Bathurst 6 Hours. So I've had a fair bit of racing this year so far, which has been really good. Like you said, we ended up winning the Victorian State Championship, which was awesome. Unfortunately, not the circumstances would have wanted to have won it under. We would have been awesome. Would have rather finish all 5 rounds and completed that. But, with these times, you've got to kind of take it when you can get it. So, that was awesome. And, we've done 2 out of 7 national rounds, and we're currently leading that championship as well. So, hopefully looking forward to getting that series started back up again, and at least being able to finish the series. That would be absolutely awesome.
Well, we're going to find out more about that. We've spoken a bit about your future. We're going to find out a bit about your past as well, about how you got into this crazy world of motorsport. But right now, we're going to take a break here on In Pit Lane, and when we come back, we'll be joined once again by our special guest, Tom Sargent. This is In Pit Lane on Channel 31, right across Melbourne, and of course on CTV around Australia, and the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, I guess tonight is Tom Sargent, who announced some very exciting news recently. He's about to take the next step on his racing career and move on to what's called the Porsche pyramid of motorsport, and he's going to be stepping out of his Formula Ford and into a very recent ex-Carrera Cup car next year in the Michelin Sprint Cup. But right now, let's go back, Tom, and talk about how you got involved in motorsport, because you've been involved for an awful long time. I believe you started at 7 years old. How did that all happen?
Well, my dad used to do a little bit of kart racing when he was in his 20s. And Nan did a fair bit of rally driving when she was also kind of in her heyday as well. So racing's kind of motorsport. The love for motorsport's kind of always kind of been in my family. So when I was just before I kind of turned 7, my dad took me to a go-kart meeting to see, just to show me around, see if this was something I'd be interested in. And at 7 years old, don't really know what's really going on. So at the time, I was kind of like, oh yeah, I suppose this is pretty cool. So not really knowing much back then. So I started when I was 7, like you were saying, and I did karting for 7 or 8 years, I think it was, around that. So I did a fair bit of karting all over Australia. I went to even went to England and competed in events over there, which was awesome. But and then that kind of led me on to that journey I took in karting. Kind of really then evolved my myself and my passion for motorsport, and then I really enjoyed it. I loved it so much, and that's kind of where it started. My want to be in motorsport and have a career in it. So it's kind of where it all started, and then that led me into Formula Ford, and now here we are.
That's one of the things that had a lot of discussion over the past few years. I mean, I think everybody has established now that obviously the place to start is karting, but it's that transition out of karting into full-scale, larger-scale motorsport that sort of, has vexed people at the moment in terms of, the value of Formula Ford, or whether there are better ways to go. I mean, for you, what does it look like? I mean, that jump from karting into Formula Ford, do you think that was a good move, or do you think that there could be something sort of, a better first step for people like yourself?
100% hands down, I believe that the step I made into Formula Ford was the right step, and Dad and I thought long and hard about it, and I know the main reason why we kind of did it, I didn't know much about Formula Ford at the time, but the main reason was, Dad had grown up watching Formula Ford, and he'd, seen anyone who's anyone's really kind of went from karting to Formula Ford and competed in that series, and anyone that's kind of done well in Formula Ford has gone on to do quite well. So, I think it was even the Bathurst 1000 last year, I believe, where out of the 6 people that stood on the podium, 5 of them had won Formula Ford championships. 4 Australian championships and 1 New Zealand championship, I believe there was. So it shows that Formula Ford is such a a good class and it's a proving ground to develop your skills, your maturity, your mentality, your driving style. So, they're a very basic car that, where you don't have a slick tyre, you don't have aerodynamics, you don't have a lot of power. So it really teaches you discipline and, how to drive a car. And, although, you jump into different cars, they kind of vary your driving style and everything, but the Formula Ford, really, the way it's set up and the way it works is really a good grounding to work off for the rest of your motorsport career.
Of course, when I first reached out to you, I mean, all I saw was on your Facebook page. You said, I've got a very exciting announcement, and people were speculating as to what that was. So I didn't know what the announcement was when we sort of arranged this interview, and people were coming up with all sorts of things, including the S5000 was raised as well. Is that something that interests you as a new category? I mean, you mentioned sort of lack of aero, lack of power, perhaps not as much aero as some people would like, but certainly plenty of power in an S5000. Would you like to get behind the wheel of one of those?
Oh, I think that would be an absolutely awesome experience. Like you said, they're a pretty serious race car. Obviously, like you said, they're not much grip, not overly much aero, a fair bit of power, so they look really tricky to drive. I'd kill to get behind the wheel of one of them and give it a bit of a crack. But as a career kind of thing, I maybe not, as I'm kind of on this route. Hopefully with this Porsche route, but for sure I'd love to get behind the wheel of one of them and do a couple of laps.
Well, it sounds like you've got it all sorted out in terms of you've planned for your future and you know the path that you intend to go down, which is really great news. Good luck. Now, what races have you got left for the rest of the year? It's coming up next, Sydney Motorsport Park.
Yep, I've got we're at Sydney Motorsport Park supporting the supercars on the 7th and 8th, I believe, of November, which will be just a New South Wales state round. And then at this current stage, we're looking like we're going to go to Winton and Phillip Island to finish off the last 2 rounds of the Australian Formula Ford Championship as well. So we might see looking like it's going to be a busy end of the year.
Yes, it is. It's going to be very hectic for all of us if everything that is planned to happen actually happens. We're all going to be wanting a break by the time the month of November is finished. We want to go back into lockdown again, or at least have him from exhaustion.
Well, I think you're right. We kind of had our Christmas break, kind of during the year. So, but by the time, like you said, by the time we've done all these races at the end of the year, I think everyone's going to be pretty worn out.
Well, it's certainly a good lead into 2022, and we wish you the best of luck with it, not just for next year, but also for your future plans. And hopefully one day, as we said to Cooper Murray, hopefully one day I'll bump into you in pit lane at the Le Mans 24-hour race. But for now, best of luck in the future. And Tom Sargent, thanks for joining us in pit lane.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. Thank you.
The show may be over, but the motorsport chat continues with Full Course Yellow, the In-Pit Lane After Party. We're on the In-Pit Lane YouTube channel live most Thursday nights at 9:30, straight after In-Pit Lane here on Channel 31. So, why not join us? Yes, like I said earlier, we would really love you to join us for Full Course Yellow. It's live straight after the program here on Channel 31. If you're watching us live on Thursday night at 9 o'clock, flick over to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. We'd love you to be there. Get in the chat and raise some questions, make some comments. We'd love you to be a part of that program. If you're into your motorsport and you want to meet with a whole bunch of like-minded people, not just me, but the people behind the scenes here at In Pit Lane, Doc, who's regularly alongside me back in the studio, and people behind the scenes. Every week they join us and we talk about all manner of things, mostly motorsport, but not exclusively. Anyway, it's good to know that things are sort of getting back to some semblance of normality. Coming up very soon, the historic Sandown, and we're hoping to be out there filming for that, and we'll be bringing you some exciting news about that, hopefully on next week's program as well. Hoping to do a bit of live streaming from that event. Not so much of races and all the rest of it, but just some behind-the-scenes stuff. We're putting that together right now. So once again, thank you for your support. It's been a very difficult year for all of us, and we do appreciate the support of everybody who gets in touch every week and sort of keeps me motivated from behind the suburban curtain here in this little box that I'm currently stuck in at the moment. So from all of us here, well, from me anyway, until we see you next week, thanks for joining us and bye for now.